Hello, this is Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov with the second part of the video dedicated to so-called Greek sacrifice, the bishop sacrifice on h7. We left the first part with the position which you see on the board right now. I ask you to evaluate the validity of sacrifice at this point, and now we're going to see what actually happens here. So the beginning is already what we know. The bishop sacrifice on h7. King goes to g6. But now, instead of queen g4, which probably was okay too, white plays queen e4. Black pretty much has only moved f5. And now white plays queen h4. A very important part is that this knight is protected by the bishop. Because of that, white is threatening queen h7 checkmate. At the same time, if there would be a little change in the position, like for example, if black queenside pieces will be already developed, this will mean nothing because black will play rook h8 and white is losing. However, because black pieces are not developed, queen h7 check is a huge threat and allows white to win the game. In the game, black played f4, and after queen h7, king g5, queen g7. Oh no, sorry. White played h4 check, king g4, queen g6 check, king takes h4, g3, and black resigned. So the checkmate is very close. All right, so let's close this one. Okay, so this position has differences and similarities with a few previous examples. The major difference is that when white sacrifices bishop on h7, his idea is not to checkmate black king. His idea is to win the pawn. White's next move is knight g5 check, followed by queen takes g4. By the way, when I see the sacrifice in the games of club players, I see a lot of times, too many times, when black kind of saying, oh, I know this combination. I'm losing if I take the bishop, so I better go here. And almost always, this is just a bad move. Once again, there are exceptions to every rule. But in this case, you're down a pawn with the king open, for example, if white just pulls his bishop away. And so with the correct play for your opponent, you're just going to lose. So don't be afraid to take this bishop. It doesn't mean that every time you take the bishop, you win. But you definitely should get into calculation mode and try to see how dangerous is the position when you take this bishop. Because you would be surprised in how many cases you win. I would say that in the majority of situations, black does win when white sacrifices the bishop on h7. Just because in the majority of club players' games, white is so excited to play sacrifice, which he saw somewhere, that he overestimates his attack and he's not patient enough to check all the variations. And sometimes, let's be honest, many club players, they kind of feel that their combination is not good, but they can't refuse anyway. They're not patient and don't have enough willpower not to play sacrifice. In any case, in this particular situation, the sacrifice does not work. Black takes the bishop, knight g5 check, king g6, queen takes g4, white won a pawn. Again, look at this king g6 move. The most challenging move. Except here, king goes to g6 not to defend himself, because on g8, king will be safe enough, but white will be down a pawn. But king on g6 goes there to win the knight on g5. after queen takes g4, black plays f5, and now we see again level 3 situation, I would say. I would say the bishop sacrifice is level 1 pattern recognition. The fact that the king can go to g6, already next level. And the fact that after queen h4, you can play rook h8 is already next step. And because rooks are connected, rook can go to h8, and queen has to go like to g3, queens will be traded, and the knight will be captured. Black is up a piece. There is not much white can do. In real game, white moved his queen to h3. Black took this knight on g5 and proceeded to win the game. Once again, the exposed king is irrelevant as long as there are no other pieces to attack. After f4, king f6, king f7, king g8, king just safely return to base, and black won the game easily. Let's close this board. Okay, and again, very similar position, but there is a little difference. And I want you to spend a few seconds to understand what the difference is. I can help you right away by saying that the difference will be clear only on level 3. So it's not very obvious. So first few moves will be the same, but somewhere later the difference will come and surface and the sacrifice will not work, unlike in the previous example. White did play bishop takes, I'm sorry, actually the sacrifice works, unlike in previous example. In the previous example, the sacrifice didn't work, but here, after queen takes g4, f5, queen h4, the little difference, the fact that bishop is on c8, and therefore the rooks are not connected, allows white to keep his knight, he is up a pawn, and he proceeded to win the game. If rook h8 would be possible, if bishop would be on c8 and the rook will be protected, like in the previous game, white will lose a knight and black will win the game. But this didn't happen, and white was the one who proceeded to win. And finally, we'll see kind of a primitive example of success for white. In majority of situations we saw so far, black was able to save the game, but in this situation, king g6 doesn't save. Though king g8 would be even worse. After king g8, queen h5 check, rook e8, there is additional resource for white in the fact that his rook is open. This is just checkmate in 2 moves. Without rook being open, just imagine for a second that rook is not open. It will be a little bit harder, though it's still winning for white. Unlike in all our previous examples, knight can interpose. So when, again, this is kind of a pattern, you have to see this resource as well. Once again, reminder, let's say rook is not open. To make it clear, I just will put a pawn on f2. All right, so you don't have rook takes f7 check. However, you have other ideas. Like in this particular case, white wins easily because of his bishop. Or maybe even simpler win will be bishop a3 check. Bishop a3 check, and black is losing. But knight h7 check is also good. Knight h7, king e7, bishop g5 check. If king moves away, white wins the queen. And if black plays f6, queen takes g7 is already familiar checkmate to us. So, as you can see, lots and lots of small details come into play here. Just imagine that white wouldn't have this bishop open. Then the whole combination will not work. So, when you study this theme, just like we did today, you can see lots of little details which you wouldn't on the first examination. And so instead of just seeing one pattern, now you see probably somewhere between 5 and 10 patterns, right? And you see much deeper. Like those examples allow you to calculate 5, 6 moves deep in some lines. Not only you know first three moves are easy. You know that you take on h7, let's go to original position. You take on h7, then you play knight g5, then you play queen h5. But as you can see here, this is quite complex. This is a little bit more sophisticated example because it featured an in-between move. This game actually happened on pretty high level. White was Robert Hübner and black was Viktor Korchnoi. And after bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight g5 check right away doesn't work, because after king g6, black should be completely fine. Like, for example, queen d3 could be met by queen f5, and white doesn't have enough compensation for the piece. However, after sacrifice, Hübner played in between move e6, and probably surprisingly for you, Korchnoi resigned here. However, his resignation actually was not premature. White wins in all lines, despite the fact that maybe it will look complex. White's win is not so complex. Like, I'll show you a couple of lines. For example, pawn takes, pawn, check, king g6, for example, and now g4 is a key move. White wins a piece back, and his attack meanwhile continues. So this is just dead loss position for black. At the same time, if black plays bishop takes f3, maybe this is a critical line. I will give you a few seconds. How does white win here? Try to figure it out. And the answer is queen d3 check, bishop e4 only move, trying to counterattack white queen, and now the simplest is queen h3 check, followed by pawn takes queen. I suspect that the reason Korchnoi missed this sacrifice, because before he played this game, he played a different game which featured a very similar position. Let me bring the next game on the screen. This is another one of Viktor Korchnoi's games. Here, his opponent did not sacrifice on h7, and rightly so, and try to figure out what is the difference between those positions. Why in the previous one, white was winning, and in this one, the sacrifice doesn't work. The difference is quite subtle. It also kind of reflects the creative aspect of chess, how often just position of one piece or one pawn changes the evaluation of the position from winning to losing. This is something which many players struggle with, and not only club players, but some grandmasters. When you sometimes play the opening line which you played before, it feels like you already played it and position exactly the same, and only later turns out there was one little difference and it changed the evaluation completely. So here, the sacrifice doesn't work because e6, after bishop takes f3, queen d3 check, bishop e4, the position of bishop on e3 doesn't allow white to play queen h3 check and save his queen. So here, black will win his queen back. Basically, white is down already 2 pieces, so he can win 1 piece back by doing this, but he still will be down a piece and in a lost position. So white did not sacrifice a piece. However, Korchnoi later outplayed his opponent and won game anyway. But in any case, this example is interesting. It shows how complex those positions could be sometimes. And finally, I would like to show to you example from Grandmaster practice. This is somewhat famous game between two late Grandmaster, Lev Pologaevsky and Michael Tal. Two players who definitely were legends. One of them became world champion, Mikhail Tal, one of the most beloved players in the chess history. But Lev Pologaevsky was one of the best players in the world at his time. And matter of fact, he had very good score against Tal. Tal was famous for his sacrifices. His opponents most of the time couldn't keep up with Tal's attacking skills. It's well known that majority of Tal's sacrifices were objectively incorrect, but majority of players could not refute them over the board. Pologaevsky was a great defender and great calculator. And so he had tremendous score against Tal. In this particular game, Pologaevsky actually was one who went on the offensive. So he sacrificed the bishop, and King G8 position is a little bit different from what we used to see. But King G8 is still bad because after Queen H4, Rook E8, though this move cannot work because Queen is on H4. But still, after those moves, White's compensation is overwhelming. White's attack is probably decisive. So Tal went King G6. He knew very well that usually this is a move which refutes a combination. He's threatening Queen takes G5. And now Pologaevsky played H4. Very rarely you can see when someone sacrifices a piece and then just plays a game. He doesn't have a forced win. He just kind of have a feel that he should have a strong attack. This was actually Tal's forte, but in this particular game, he was outplayed by Pologaevsky. Tal played Rook to C4, and Pologaevsky played H5 check. King takes H5 is losing because of G4, King G6, check, check, here, here, and finally Black King will be checkmated. So King went to H6, but White continued his attack. It's not like it's easy win. However, the position is very difficult to defend for Black. So the game was extremely complex. Here, White actually did miss a winning move, which was Knight D6. But few moves later, Tal's also missed a stronger move, and eventually White won the game. Though, even the way the game went, White always was better. If you are interested in full analysis of this game, I can refer you to a great book by Mark Dvoretsky, which is called Attack and Defense. But as you can see, on Grandmaster level, this is much more than just pattern recognition. This is already a position which, despite some similarities, is decided not by pure calculation, though calculation is very important, but more like a feel for comparing White's attacking and Black's defensive resources. So it is hard to play chess on high level, and it is hard to study tactics. But today, I try to show to you how much easier to understand those tactical nuances when you divide each theme into small elements. And so don't be shy when you study tactics, when you study those combinations, to understand the idea behind every single move in the combination. Because too often we get dismissive and we say, oh, all right, got it, next one. But the strength of the chess player comes not in knowledge most of the time, but in how deeply he feels certain things. And as more you will get into every detail, as more you will get into every idea behind every move, as better chess player you will be. Thank you very much for your attention. This was Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov. Goodbye.